You've stood in front of a mirror in the middle of summer and watched your own skin change color. A week at the beach, and you're darker. A week back behind a desk, and you fade toward where you started. It feels automatic, almost boring, like your skin is simply doing what skin does. But that fading and darkening is your body running a calculation that took over 100,000 years to build. And the real answer for why your skin looks the way it does is far stranger than paint, luck, or where your parents happened to be born. Skin color is not decoration. It is not random. It is one of the fastest changing traits in the human body. And Earth itself pulled the strings. Start at the beginning. Every human being alive today can trace their ancestry back to Africa, somewhere around 300,000 years ago. And the very first humans, all of them, had dark skin. Why? The sun. Near the equator, ultraviolet radiation hits the ground hard, all year round, every single day. Human skin, especially skin without thick fur to block it, takes the full force of that radiation directly. And ultraviolet light does something dangerous at a level you can't see. It breaks apart a molecule in your blood called folate. Folate decodes fairly simply. It's a B vitamin. Your body needs it to build new cells, to repair damaged DNA, and most critically, to construct a healthy spine and nervous system in a developing fetus. Without enough folate, pregnancies fail more often, and babies are born with severe birth defects. So here's the problem early humans faced without ever knowing it. Strong sunlight breaks down folate. Thin pigment lets more sunlight through to the blood vessels near the surface of the skin, which means near the equator, anyone with lighter skin was quietly losing a vitamin essential to having healthy children. Dark skin fixed that. Melanin, the pigment that colors skin, hair, and eyes, acts like a natural shield. It absorbs ultraviolet radiation before it can reach the blood vessels underneath. More melanin, more protection. Near the equator, over dozens of generations, that protection meant more children surviving to have children of their own, and more surviving children means the trait spreads. That's the first half of the puzzle. Here's the twist. If dark skin is the shield, why isn't every human being on Earth dark-skinned? Because shields cost something too. Follow early humans as they migrate out of Africa, up into what is now the Middle East, then further into Europe and Asia. As they move away from the equator, something changes that has nothing to do with culture or belief. The angle of the sun changes. Days grow short and gray in winter. The ultraviolet radiation reaching the ground drops, sometimes dramatically, and your body actually needs some ultraviolet light. Specifically, your skin uses it to manufacture vitamin D. Vitamin D isn't optional. It regulates how your body absorbs calcium, which directly controls how strong or brittle your bones become. Now picture dark skin, built to block ultraviolet radiation, transplanted into a region where the sun is already weak most of the year. That shield, so useful near the equator, becomes a liability. Not enough ultraviolet gets through, not enough vitamin D gets made, bones weaken. In severe cases, this produces a condition called rickets, where a child's bones bend and deform because they can't harden properly. So a second pressure appears, pulling in the opposite direction. Near the equator, stay dark, protect folate. Far from the equator, lighten up, let enough sun through to make vitamin D. This trade-off model is most widely credited to anthropologist Nina Jablonski and her research partner George Chaplin. They mapped ultraviolet radiation levels across the entire globe and layered that map against skin color data collected from populations worldwide. The match was almost too clean to be coincidence. Skin color across the planet roughly tracks how strong the sun is where your ancestors lived for thousands of years. Not randomly, not by accident, by exact solar geography. Here's where it gets stranger. You might assume evolution built light skin once, somewhere in ancient Europe, and simply carried it everywhere lighter-skinned populations went. That would be tidy. It's also wrong. Geneticists studying populations across Europe and East Asia have found something unexpected. Light skin in Europeans and light skin in East Asians come from largely different genetic mutations, different genes, different mechanisms, evolved separately, at separate times, in separate populations, arriving at a similar outward result through entirely different paths inside the DNA. In other words, light skin isn't one single trait passed down a single family tree. It evolved more than once, independently, because the same pressure, weak sunlight, showed up in more than one part of the world, and evolution solved the same problem twice, using different tools each time. And it gets even more counterintuitive once you look closely at Africa itself. For a long time, the assumption was simple. Africa, dark skin. Everywhere else, variation. Geneticist Sarah Tishkoff and her research team tested that assumption directly by studying the DNA of thousands of people across the African continent. What they found broke the simple story completely. Africa contains some of the darkest skin tones on Earth. It also contains some of the lightest. Populations in parts of Eastern and Southern Africa carry genetic variants for lighter skin, some of the very same variants found in European populations, inherited from an extremely old shared ancestry long before recorded history. Meanwhile, some of the genetic variants responsible for very dark skin in certain African populations are the same variants found in people from Australia and New Guinea, populations who never had contact with each other, separated by an ocean and tens of thousands of years. Skin color does not track what people usually assume it tracks. It does not cleanly follow continent or ancestry group, or any of the categories humans tend to sort each other into. It tracks something older and far more specific. It tracks sunlight at a given latitude, sustained over an enormous stretch of time. There's one more twist, and it might be the strangest of all. Travel up to the Arctic Circle, to the Inuit populations of the far north. By the sunlight rule alone, you'd expect some of the palest skin on Earth. The sun barely rises for months at a time. And yet, Inuit populations have noticeably darker skin than other groups living at similarly extreme northern latitudes. Why would evolution break its own pattern here? Because sunlight isn't the only way to get vitamin D. It's just the default way. Traditional Inuit diets are extraordinarily rich in fish, seal, and whale fat, foods naturally loaded with vitamin D. When a population gets its vitamin D from food instead of sunlight, the pressure to lighten the skin simply disappears. The shield can stay up, because folate still needs protecting, and the sun, weak as it is no longer the only source doing the other job. This is the part that reveals what's really going on underneath. Skin color was never really about the sun on its own. It was always about a body solving two competing chemical problems at once, using whatever tools were locally available, whether that tool was pigment or fish oil. Now bring this back to the mirror. Most humans today no longer live the way their ancestors did when this system was being built. People migrate. People work indoors. People wear clothing year-round, everywhere, regardless of how strong the local sun actually is. And that mismatch has consequences your evolutionary history never had to account for. This isn't new either. During the Industrial Revolution, cities across northern Europe filled with thick coal smog that blocked out huge amounts of sunlight for months at a time. Rickets swept through those cities in staggering numbers. Children's legs bowed, their chests deformed. For a while, doctors were baffled because rickets looked like a disease, when really it was a geography problem layered on top of an evolutionary one. Sunlight had quietly disappeared from daily life, and bodies built to depend on it fell apart. The eventual fix, cod liver oil, worked simply because it replaced the vitamin D that industrial skies had blocked out. The same basic mismatch is still playing out today, just in quieter, more personal ways. Someone with skin pigmentation built for the strong, direct sun of West Africa, now living through gray winters in northern Europe or the northern United States, working inside an office most daylight hours, can end up critically low in vitamin D. Their shield is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's just doing it in the wrong place, under weaker sun than the body expects. Someone with pale skin built for weak northern sunlight, now living near the equator, or spending long hours outdoors under intense direct sun, faces the opposite problem. Their skin lets in more ultraviolet radiation than it can safely absorb, and skin cancer rates climb. Neither of these outcomes is a flaw. They're a lag. Your skin is still running an ancient program, calibrated to wherever your distant ancestors spent enough generations for natural selection to fine-tune it. Modern life can move a person across the entire planet in a single afternoon. Evolution still thinks in tens of thousands of years. So the next time you catch yourself in a mirror, tanned from a week outside, or paler after a long winter indoors, you're not looking at a coincidence, and you're not looking at a simple inherited trait either. You're looking at the surface record of a 100,000-year negotiation between the sun and the human body, a trade-off between protecting folate and producing vitamin D, replayed independently again and again across every population that ever settled somewhere new. Earth didn't paint humanity in different colors by chance. It calculated them.